Hi everyone, this is Aurora with Supercharged Science, and I actually had a few minutes before we take off, so I wanted to address one of the emails that have been, one of the top questions that have been coming in by email, and I thought I would do it on a Facebook Live so it's just easier, I don't have to type so much. But the question oh, by the way, my name's Aurora with superchargedscience.com, homeschool science resources and curriculum for K through 12, and one of the questions was how do I avoid making mistakes? I'm new to homeschooling, or I've been homeschooling for a while, but it's just, I need some more inspiration. Do you have any ideas? So I'm going to give you some of my top ideas. If any of them resonate with you, go for it. If they don't, that's okay. Just keep going, and I'm sure there will be something somewhere. Okay, so so I actually am in, where am I? St. George, Utah. So I'm just waiting for my family to come down. I thought I would answer a few of these. One of them is that people, we're all human. We make mistakes. It happens. Not a big deal, right? But I realize that when I'm teaching my kids, sometimes I expect too much, and I expect them to be little adults and not like kids. And so one of my mistakes, I would say, is having unrealistic expectations. I want them to enjoy this lesson. I prepared it, so you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to learn as much as you can. But really, I haven't spent time listening to my kids and getting feedback from them. So that would be the first mistake. Another mistake would be, let me see if I can just prop this up so it's easier for me to talk, because I talk with my hands. Did I mention I'm Italian? Hang on. So let's see, what would be appropriate height? Here we go. And so another mistake would be not giving the kids the tools they need in order to do what they're doing. So for example, this happens a lot with science, where kids are, sorry, I know I'm moving a lot on you here. When parents are trying to teach their kids science, they are expecting them to do too much and with very little stuff. And it can be done, but to have no materials and just to sit there and watch something, that's not science. And so science is it's the art of asking questions and getting back answers and designing experiments so you can get those answers. Now, you don't need expensive scientific equipment, but you do need something. You just can't sit there and watch it and call that science. It doesn't work. Okay, so another one is not having any what I call acuity about how the kid learns. Now, there are 4 different types of learning styles, and if your style matches your kids, that's when you go, oh, it's so easy to teach them, oh, we just connect, everything just flows, and it's easy, right? For those of you who have kids, you're like pulling your hair out, and you're like, why is he not getting this? Why is it like an uphill struggle? I'm pushing a freight train up a hill. What's going on? So that's because your method of delivering communication is not necessarily their method of receiving communication, and that also applies for their learning technique, their preferred learning style. Now, we all have all 4, and I'll tell you what those are in a second, but everyone has a certain one that we naturally gravitate towards. And so, for example, the first one is I'm very visual. So you can tell because I talk very fast. You can also tell because I need to see things in order to really get my aha moment. So that's a visual learner. Auditory, they need to hear it, and they will speak a little bit slower. They will have much more inflections and intonations in their speech, and so you can tell that they're an auditory learner because they just need to hear it. Usually these are the kids that drive visual learners crazy, because it's like, you're not paying attention. Why aren't you paying attention to me? I want your eyes. That's because you're visual and they're auditory. They are 100% with you, but they may be looking at other things, like a butterfly in the tree, but they are so focused on you, it's just a different way. Okay, so yeah, give me a thumbs up if this resonates with anybody. So that's an auditory learner. And by the way, if you're the teacher who's auditory, but you've got a visual learner, you need to supplement what you're speaking about with charts, graphs, diagrams, something to keep that kid engaged so they get their aha moment. Now, if you've got a kinesthetic learner, now my daughter's kinesthetic because every time we go into a store, she's touching everything, and she speaks slowly, and she likes to feel things and explore. And there's nothing wrong with that, but for a visual mom, kinesthetic drives me crazy because, but I understand it, and because of that, it makes me a much more effective teacher. So students that are kinesthetic, they're going to move more slowly. They need to feel and experience things. And so science actually is great for these types of learners. They're usually drawn to science because they actually get to roll around and play with things at their own pace, which is great. And oh, Brenda, definitely visual and kinesthetic learner. There you go. The number 4 is digital, and I hesitate to use that term. It's an old term from the 30s. It doesn't mean online. Digital means to actually see print on a page. So these are your students that when they see print, they're like, ah, I get it. This is it. And so if they don't, if they can maybe hear it and they kind of get it, or they see it, they see pictures, they kind of get it. But when they read words on a page, they're like, the light bulb goes off. So that's a digital learner. So don't confuse that with being online or in our digital age. Has nothing to do with that. Just digits on a page. Make sense? Okay. So that's having acuity about the 4. Now we all have all 4, which is why you're able to connect with students on a different level, right? There's no one size fits all, but those are the 4 primary ways we have of communicating as well as learning, and they're different. I communicate very differently when I'm on stage versus when I'm in my zone and I'm my art mode. So it just depends on what it's situation specific. And we all have all 4, but we have one that we gravitate more towards. So if you think for a minute about the kind of learner you have for students and maybe how different they are, one of the challenges homeschool parents make is they try to deliver it all in one area. And this is where teachers that have been trained and have a really good, a lot of experience in this field actually have a step up on homeschool parents because they've already had that experience in the classrooms where they know there are many different kinds of learners, and they've tried lots of different things simply because they go to work every day and they have other people's children to deal with. So this is something I would encourage you. Actually, as a homeschool parent, you have a leg up on these teachers because you already know your kid from day one. So that's the good news. Okay, so how are we doing so far? You guys want a couple more? Okay, so those are some more of my distinctions. So not having enough tools for the job, acuity about the way they're learning, and I'll give you one more distinction that should really make a big difference. So one of the top complaints I have from parents is, my kids are bored. We're doing this, and so that having the acuity about how they learn should help. The last one is a little backwards and a little inside out, and some people have a hard time with this one. So see if this makes sense to you. So when you and I went to school eons ago, right, decades ago, my kids like to say millions of years ago, but I don't really think I'm that old. So, when we went to school, we were taught in a certain framework, in a certain box, right? So my challenge to that is there is no box, right? So when people think outside the box, actually there is no box. Okay, so we were taught in a certain mindset. And so the idea is that we were taught academics first, and then we were taught if there was time, tacking on a science experiment at the end. And the truth is that's backwards. You have to get the kids interested and excited about what it is you want to teach them, and you do that by finding out what they are already interested in. So this doesn't mean, if you're passionate about math and they hate the thing, that you just get all excited and pumped up and you shove them into it. That's not what you do. You find out what they're already interested and excited about. Suppose it's basketball. Suppose it's swimming. Suppose it's the beach. That's great. So you start there, and that's the easiest way to do it, is to relate what they're excited about with what you are doing. So for example, if I was teaching kids about, I'll pick a weird one, like water purification, like chemistry of water. Suppose they're passionate about cooking. I would start there. I would say, all right, so when we cook, when we make cookies, that's chemistry. And then they might get interested, like, what do you mean? Like, all right, let's bake a batch of cookies right now. And then they're really excited, right? Because they get to pick the chocolate chips, or they get to pick the, whatever the thing is, and where we'll make that. And as I'm talking, I'm doing it through the filter of chemistry. So Brenda's kid loves trains. That's fantastic. So Brenda, if you want to teach math, start with trains. You say, okay, so tell me everything you know about trains. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. They've got, your son might know 15 different kinds of trains, right? And you say, okay, no problem. So if that train, how fast do those trains go? Now he's really excited. He's like, oh, they go 110 miles an hour when it's on an open stretch and there's nothing in there. I'm like, 110 miles an hour, that's awesome. How long does it take to get from LA to San Diego? And then he'll start to think about it. And he can tell you, he can convert miles an hour to how long that's going to take. Well, how much fuel did they use? Now he's looking at fuel consumption rates. And you can say, well, how many engines do they need to get over this part? Because of the grade is 50, say it's a 5% grade. What does that mean? You go up 5 feet for every 100 feet across. Now we're talking about geometry. You see the connection? So you start with what they love, and you get them interested and excited. Now, when I teach kids, like a big classroom. I'll have like 200 kids. Now I can't do that for every kid. So what I'll do is I'll bring something that piques most kids' interest. So that's why I do chemistry shows, chemistry magic shows, I do fire shows, I do all kinds of things that make them go, whoa! And I'll do something that'll make them make their brains just go in a pretzel very quickly. Oh, no problem, Brenda, I'm happy to help. For example, if I'll talk about something that's usually pretty boring, like the science of sound. Now, I'm a musician, I love music, I play 4 different musical instruments, I love sound, but most people, it's kind of boring. I understand that. So, so I will come in there with a blowtorch or a propane torch and a PVC, no, not a PVC pipe, a steel pipe and a screen on the bottom that's hidden inside, and I'll heat that screen. And so basically what happens is I'll heat the screen, heat the air, and the air will vibrate up the tube, up the column, and when I turn the tube, it'll be quiet, but if I keep it straight up, it'll resonate the tube and you'll hear a woo, and then I'll say something like, hey, let's pour out the sound, and I'll tip it sideways, and then the sound will disappear, and then I'll put it back up and it'll go woo, and the kids are like, wait, what just happened here? So I'll do things that are interesting. So for example, I'll bring in helium balloons and I'll find out who the musicians are in the audience, and I'll bring them up and they'll play a musical instrument, and then they'll take a of helium and they'll try to play their instrument and it'll go but I'll do things that get them interested and excited so they're engaged. So this is the inside out part. You and I were taught, most likely, unless you were fortunate enough to go to a different school, you know, academics first, academics, and then practical application. And the world is different today. So if you really want to instill this love of science and love of learning long term, you're going to go the other way. You're going to get them interested and excited first, and then it's easy. You're pulling from the inside out, and actually this is where the love of learning comes. If you ask anybody who's excited about science that's like a grown-up, you can ask them, was there someone in your past, you know, when you were growing up that really got you interested in what you do? And chances are 9 out of 10 times you're going to hear, oh my gosh, yes, I had this uncle that had this garage and it was full of radio parts, and he taught me how to make radios that didn't use batteries, and we could hear radio stations, people talking from halfway around the world. Or you'll hear somebody saying, oh my gosh, so my dad was a pilot, and then he met my mom who was also a pilot, and now I fly for the Air Force and I love it, and they're like lit up. It's because they had someone that really connected with them in a way that made sense to them, one of those 4 ways, and shared their passion, shared their excitement. Nobody ever said, I was so passionate because I read the science textbook. No. So textbooks are great, don't get me wrong, but you need to instill that excitement and that passion first. So if this has been useful, please forward this to, and share it with other people so they can benefit as well. If you would like to learn more about what I do, and have me teach your kids for you for next year and have it completely covered, you can download my free guidebook. Oh, that reminds me, I put together a free guidebook on what you need to teach at what grade level. It's totally free. Get it on my website, www.superchargedscience.com. And there's also a how to pick a curriculum that will work for your kid, because I totally get it. I'm not for everybody. Totally understand. But I want you to make sure that you get a good match for your family. You can get that guidebook from my website as well, www.superchargedscience.com. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me an email. I'm a real person excited about science, and I do answer each and every one. So feel free to call me, or you could email us faster, aurora@superchargedscience.com. And if you have more questions, don't hesitate to ask. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.